Tom Cole, the coach for Buckeye Cable System and BCSN, and really an honor and privilege to be with one of the outstanding directors in Hollywood, Brett Leonard. Brett, when you read your resume, you have to, before we get into the movie The Perfect Season, you have to be pretty thrilled. Toledoan, DeVilbiss High School, hometown guy. When you read your resume in Hollywood as a director, the things they say about you, cutting edge, the digital element of film, avant-garde, ahead of your time, Russell Crowe, Denzel Washington, that's got to make you feel great, the things that people have written about you.
Well, for me, it's just doing the work. I mean, I come at it from kind of an Ohio perspective. I always have. I just love the work. I love getting the work done. And sometimes that work means you have to innovate and do things a little bit differently, and that's kind of exciting to me. That's always been exciting to me. And while you're doing it, you don't think,
yes,
oh, this is going to be ahead of its time.
Yes, right.
But then later on, people start saying that, so it's kind of just it's a little bit of a funny thing as you develop a career.
And you have certainly done that, and we're so honored that you're bringing this film to Toledo, shooting it in Toledo, and putting your expertise with that, with your brother Greg, and. This Perfect Season film, I found it very interesting in your background. You worked at the cinemas on Secor,
yeah,
and that made you have an appreciation for film because you saw films constantly, and you saw them from different angles. You saw how the crowd reacted to them. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, my first job was an usher at the Showcase Cinema.
Yeah.
And it was the summer that Star Wars came out.
Right.
So I got to see the reaction of an audience to a tremendously effective film. But my history in Toledo goes back even further than that, because here, Waite Stadium, my parents went to Waite.
Yes.
And met here.
Oh my gosh.
So it probably could have met under the bleachers right over here. So
that's going to be another film we'll shoot in Toledo.
It may be that without this stadium, I wouldn't exist.
Yes.
So this story comes full circle for me in a lot of ways. But yeah, just being able to grow up in a place like Toledo, which is sort of the the center of the country, and you really learn what plays. They say play in Peoria, but you learn what plays in Toledo, and that's actually served me very well through my career, because there's if it can play here, it can play anywhere.
I know that you're so excited about this movie, The Perfect Season. Tell the folks what grabbed you about this script, Steve Guinan and Guy Stout wrote. Because you see, I'm sure the newspaper delivery guys leaving a script for you wrapped up in the paper. You see thousands and thousands of them. Probably most of them aren't very good. What grabbed you about this, and you said, oh my gosh, this is special?
Well, the truth is, Guy and Steve did a great job writing this true story into a cinematic structure. They put it into a real cinematic story. The funny thing about cinema is that it's shorthand. I mean, imagine if every novel had to be 120 pages. It would change the way that novels are told.
Right.
Those stories are told. So in cinema, you have to deal with shorthand. You have to know how to condense things into emotional moments. And they really were able to encapsulate the individual stories of these tremendously amazing women into just a very compelling cinematic story. And that's what I look like. I read something, I say, is it a movie or is it not a movie? It may be a great story, but it may not be a movie.
Yes.
This is a great movie, and that's because that's really because of the work they did on that script. And
Brett,
of course, because of what the women achieved to begin with, that the script,
that's where I was going.
The script is based on. Without that, there would be nothing.
Because it is a true story.
Yeah.
Is that part of what reached out and grabbed you and said, this would be a great story if it would be a great movie if it weren't true. Yeah. But the fact that it's true.
Yeah. I mean, these days, authenticity is really at the core of what people are looking for in media. There's so many things that are inauthentic out there.
Yes.
Even our news is inauthentic these days, by and large. So, when there's something that's true and it's an authentic story and it has to do with human truth and human achievement, that's something that has a great X factor to it. And so in this story, the underlying theme of this film is that, women can do anything. They can invade the male huddle. They can hit hard just like men do. They can do all the things that men do, and have been now for a long time, longer than what people know. And this story is kind of an untold story, and it's time in our culture that these untold stories of women's achievement start to be told. And I think that X factor in this story makes this a tremendously compelling movie and story for people to go out and check out at the theaters.
And think of how many thousands and millions of young women out there that see this film and will get inspired to think, I can do this, I can do that. And people can't, I always say there's a lot of can't people out there.
Yeah.
They're on every corner. They'll tell you what you can't do.
That's
you
right.
know, they reel it off. You can't do this, you can't do that.
That's right.
And it's been especially harder for women as far as equal pay and equal opportunity.
Still not equitable in our culture.
No.
It's 2014.
Yeah.
That to me is an atrocity of our culture. The fact that women are still essentially an oppressed class. But these women busted through that because of their love of football, their love of the game, and they showed that none of that actually has any truth behind it. And that's why this story is so emblematic. And I think it will inspire young women and girls to achieve things. And that's probably the greatest thing we could do. I'm sure that the women who played in the Toledo Troopers all feel that they want to inspire a new generation. And for me as a filmmaker and a storyteller, that's the greatest reward I could have, is by inspiring people with this story.
Well, Brett, it's so exemplary that you're bringing your skills and your talents to your hometown.
Yes.
You know, Thomas Wolfe is wrong. You can't go home again.
Yeah, unless you make a movie.
You know, and bringing your extraordinary talents here, and maybe making Toledo, a venue for other films.
Well, I believe
besides
that's
Perfect Season.
That's part of what we're doing here. I think that Toledo can have a digital content, a media industry.
Yes.
There's a great tax incentive in the state, one of the best in the country here. There's all this talent in Toledo, a tremendous creative talent and sports talent, and all these things that allow us to create something here that's ongoing. So this film hopefully will be the start of something great.
Brett, on behalf of Buckeye Cable and BCSN, thank you so much for bringing your talents
Thanks,
to
Coach.
town. All right. Tom Cole, the coach for BCSN.